The snow continued to increase, making it harder to drive. I kept pushing the car. It was at least 30 minutes before I got to my destination, the college campus. It was getting harder to drive, but I had no choice. To make it to my early morning class tomorrow, I had to sleep at the campus. As I drove further, I noticed two figures standing at the side of the road. When I got closer, I saw a man and a woman sitting in a car. By the look of things, they might have had issues with their car, which was also parked at the side of the road. There were some tools lying near their car. It was a good thing to be nice, but in this situation, stopping in the snow to offer some people, whom I didn't know, a ride, seemed a bit off. However, they looked really miserable, so I decided to help them. I asked if I could help them, and the girl moved to the passenger side of the car to see my face. "Yes, please. You've been stranded here for several minutes now. You are a godsend. Thank you so much," the girl replied. As I was driving, the guy thanked me too. He said his car just broke down for no reason, but he had called a tow truck to get it to the garage. His name was Tyler, and the girl was Riley. Asked where they were headed, hoping it was going to be in the same direction, towards Avenue Street No. 5. Riley said it was a slight detour from the campus, but I told them I would drop them off first. "Yes, thank you," Tyler said. While I was driving, Riley kept on staring at me from the rearview mirror. She gave me a suggestive smile. I found it a bit odd and tried to focus my attention towards the road. After about 15 minutes, we arrived at their house. Just as they were about to step out of the car, the snowstorm got really bad. It was bad to the extent that it was going to be difficult to drive. You could relax a bit, and it's not safe to drive in such weather. Tyler looked concerned. I expressed my gratitude as I took my phone, keys, and jacket out of the car with me. The house felt cozy and warm once I stepped in. It was way better than the weather outside, and I was very glad for that. I sat on the sofa, making myself comfortable. Tyler excused himself and went upstairs, muttering that he had a long night of office calls ahead. Riley, too, left to freshen up. "I hope you would like some coffee and some cookies," she asked before leaving. I nodded. As I was sitting alone, I brought out my phone to text my roommate. He was someone who would get worried easily, and I didn't want him to be unnecessarily worried about me. "Hey." A soft voice called out to me. My jaw dropped as I looked up from my phone to see Riley standing in front of me wearing nothing but a small towel. I looked around to make sure I was still in the right place. How did this happen so fast? I smiled and looked away from her. I tried to ignore her. It is her house, and she can wear whatever she wants, I thought. My conscience was clear for a while after saying that to myself, up until when she started coming closer. "What are you doing?" I asked politely. It was starting to piss me off, but I was in her house, and that required that I give her some respect. It was hard not to shove her away, though. Funny that she didn't seem to remember that her boyfriend was in the same house with us. Come on, we could all have fun. The more the merrier, right? You, me, and Tyler. He loves when people join us. "I'm sure you want it too," said Riley as she slowly removed her towel. She stood there in front of me, all naked, with her arms still holding the sides of the towel. I asked if her boyfriend knew what she was doing, hoping that it would be enough to scare her away. She didn't back off an inch. It was getting extremely difficult for me to ignore her. "Come on, you wouldn't love a little bit of fun with a stranger?" Riley said the stranger in a high-pitched voice like that would get me interested. I was losing it, but I needed to be calm. The word respect kept playing in my head. Politely told her to wear something. "Riley," the voice must have been enough to get her scared as she covered herself back. "Tyler," she broke down in fake tears and said I tried to force myself on her. She was lost in fake hysteria, telling Tyler that I overpowered her and tricked her. How in the world could someone be such a good liar and actor? Before I realized what was happening, I felt loads of blood leaving my cheek at once. Seconds after, I realized I had just been punched very hard. I held my hands out, trying to stop Tyler's attack. I started to tell him that she was the one who came to me, but I had not completed my statement before I felt small fingers hitting my cheek very hard. She slapped me. I was in shock. First, she went against me, and then she had the guts to slap me. I remained staring at her in shock. I got very angry, but decided to watch the drama that was going to unfold as I noticed Tyler walking towards Riley angrily. "You have the guts to cheat on me, and still lie about it. Oh, he forced you to prance around on the towel like that. Do you know how long I've been watching you and I heard the conversation if you didn't think I didn't?" Tyler said, his fists clenched. He really knew it was his girl's fault and still beat me up. I wondered if I was in the Twilight Zone. Tyler looked at me apologetically and told me sorry. He said he needed to release the anger he felt, and he couldn't hit his girl. He had to hit me instead. I couldn't believe my ears. I grabbed my things and rushed back to my car, shaking my head. That was enough drama for one day. I should have never stopped to pick them up. I should have pretended not to see them. Thankfully, the snowstorm reduced and it was better to drive. I drove back to my campus angrily. I'm never going to be nice again. Every kid has a strong connection with his grandparents. Unfortunately, both of my grandfathers died before I was born, but I did get to meet one of my grandmothers. She was my mother's mom. I'm almost 32 now and I can't remember a lot about her, but I heard some great things. Let me tell you about a story about me and my grandma. This one I remember as if it happened yesterday. I was 10 years old. I was not old enough to take care of myself if my parents left for work or something, so I needed a babysitter. That's when my grandma came into play. It was a winter day in January. I was still sleeping when I heard a lot of commotion around the house. I opened my eyes and I looked out the window. It was snowing, and I was so happy. I mean, which kid doesn't love snow? I hopped out of bed, put on my slippers, and rushed downstairs. I was excited. In my head, I was about to go to the backyard with my dad and build a snowman, but eventually I'd find out I'll be wrong. "Good morning, honey," my mom said while looking for something in her purse. "What's going on?" Asked her while I was rubbing my eyes, still not being fully awake. "Me and Dad have to go out of town for the day, baby. It's a work thing," Mom told me while still looking for something. "What are you looking for?" Asked her my phone. "I'm going to call Grandma so she can come and stay with you tonight. You guys are going to have so much fun," she told me before taking the phone out of her bag. She then called her number before kissing me on the forehead and going into another room. Dad came in. He was dressed nicely and looked sharp. I was really hoping to make a snowman today, but hey, we'll do it tomorrow. "How about that?" Dad told me while smiling. I agreed and went in to hug him. He hugged me back. Anyway, Mom made me a bowl of cereal and told me that Grandma was on her way. "Are you going to be okay today, honey? We really have to go, but Grandma will be here in about 10 minutes, Mom asked me. Of course, I'm going to be okay, I thought to myself. I was 10, not 5. They both kissed me and went out the door, and before they closed it, a couple of snowflakes came into the hallway from outside. They instantly melt, but I got a strong feeling of going outside and playing in the snow. Mom and Dad drove away, and even before I finished my cereal, Granny came in through the door. I was so happy to see her. I went over to her and gave her a big hug. We got along so well. After breakfast, we both went out into the backyard and made a couple of snowmen. One had a carrot for a nose, and the other had a green cucumber. I found it quite odd, but we were all out of carrots. Grandma told me that this particular snowman with a green nose is special, just like me. I had freckles on my face, and she always said that I was special. I got hungry from all that playing in the snow, and she said that she would make me some pasta. I loved it. She would make it tastier than Mom. I don't know what she put in it, but I'll never forget that pasta. After dinner, we played a game of Monopoly. It was the only board game we had in the house. I know Monopoly for two sounds pretty boring, but Grandma made it fun. She was magical through my 10-year-old eyes. As I was getting ready for bed and brushing my teeth, I took a look out the bathroom mirror. It started to snow really hard. It was a snowstorm, and as I glanced at the snowman we did earlier, all I could see were two piles of snow. Even the carrot and cucumbers were covered in it. "Hello, hello," I heard coming from downstairs. Brushed my teeth to see what was going on. My grandma was at the phone trying to call Mom and Dad. "The phone lines are down due to the storm," Grandma said. "That's that. We'll see what we can do in the morning. Now off to bed. Come on," Grandma told me as she walked me upstairs to my room. After giving me a goodnight kiss, she tucked me in, but I couldn't fall asleep. I was thirsty, so after about half an hour, I went downstairs to get myself a glass of water. Grandma was on the couch. "What's wrong, honey?" she asked me. "I'm thirsty, Grandma, but why aren't you asleep yet?" I inquired. She told me that she was right in the middle of a good book and couldn't put it down. She then started telling me about it. It was about a young lady born in a wealthy family. And that's all she told me, because the sound of the back door being open interrupted her. "Sure, go upstairs now. Hide in your room and be quiet," my grandma told me. I tried to respond, but she put her hand over my mouth, covering it. "Do what I say," she said. So I rushed upstairs. Grandma slowly went towards the back door. "Hello," she said. "Give me your money." "Where's the money?" a voice said. It was a young guy, couldn't have been over 20 years old. I was at the top of the stairs looking at everything, staying in the dark. "You can have it. Just let me get my purse," Grandma said. "Give me your watch," he said after seeing it on my grandma's wrist. It was the watch she had from her husband, and she couldn't give it to him. She refused, but the thief got angry and he approached her. He tried to grab her wrist, but she resisted. He hit her over the face with his hand in an attempt to scare her into giving him what he wants. But she stood her ground. She didn't even flinch. I believe the thief was a little scared of her as well. "Give me the watch," he yelled while finally getting his hands on it. But my grandma poked him in the eye with her fingers. The thief backed off, so she grabbed the phone. "I'm on with the police right now," she told him. The thief got scared and tried to run past her before the police came. Little did he know that the phone lines were down. But before reaching the back door, he hit my grandma on her stomach. She yelled in pain. He got out of the house, but she fell to her knees. He hit her really hard, taking into consideration that she was old. But eventually, she got up, locked the doors, and started to come up the stairs. While seeing that, I went to bed and pretended I was asleep. Shortly after, she joined me, falling asleep next to me. The next morning, I heard the front door. I woke up and got out of bed. Grandma was still sleeping. I tiptoed out of the room so I wouldn't wake her. I told Mom and Dad everything, and they went upstairs to check on her. The next thing I knew, I went to stay with my aunt for the day. I didn't know why, but eventually they told me. Grandma died due to the blow she received from the thief. She suffered internal bleeding and died in her sleep. I'll never forget the night my grandma saved my life. Most people don't even believe me when I tell them, but I have a job where I work from home. People in my area mostly work with cars or in the medical industry. There aren't many jobs where I live. Thankfully, I was able to land a decent paying job that let me work from my home office. It definitely comes with its struggles, but it is hands down the best job opportunity available to me right now. It isn't always perfect. It definitely comes with its pitfalls. Sometimes you have to sit at your computer even when there isn't any work to be done. It's also very easy to get distracted. But I think my biggest problem has to do with the house itself. It's kind of creepy. The house itself is an old Victorian, like really old. We're talking mid-1800s. A family friend owned the house and sold it to me for a very fair price. Basically gave it to me. I was super excited because it meant I got a nice big house to live in by myself along with my girlfriend. I'm a natural loner, and I don't really care for social interaction. So I had a nice big house all to myself and girlfriend and job where I work from home with very minimal social interaction with other people. That was basically my ideal life. But the house's age meant that it was going to be scary at times. And I don't mean with ghosts or anything like that, but sometimes I hear the house settling in or making noises that I can't explain. I've actually had quite a few instances where I'll be sitting down and doing some work and then out of nowhere I hear a noise that I just can't rationalize. I go exploring throughout the house only to find that nothing has changed. It's as ominous as it is frustrating. I did just about what anyone else in the world would do. I started to use background noise to drown out the disturbances. First, I tried those quiet instrumentals on YouTube. You know, the ones that last 5 hours and they're supposed to put you at ease or something. It didn't really work for me because I couldn't get my computer to be loud enough to drown out all the noises. It was also not very good at keeping my attention. There was one week where my work was really slow and there wasn't a whole lot to do. I still had to sit at my computer though. There was an understanding that I was allowed to basically do anything I wanted as long as I was available to my coworkers if something came through that needed to be done. I didn't quite know what to do with this time and just started watching documentaries on YouTube. It was actually pretty fun. I learned a lot, and so that next week when things started picking up again, I just instinctively turned on a documentary. I wouldn't be able to have all of my focus on it, but it was a lot better than having some ambient noise. It actually helped distract me from the sounds of the house. I guess I just didn't have enough mental focused energy to notice any of the other sounds going on around me, if that makes any sense. Well, it had been about 2 weeks of me watching documentaries while I worked. Everything seemed to be good until one Friday morning. I started work at 8 and this must have been around 10. I was sitting at my office chair working while I listened to a documentary about certain conspiracy theories when all of a sudden, I heard an abrupt banging noise coming from upstairs. Like I had said, I hadn't been distracted by any noises for a while by this point, so the fact that I noticed this noise meant that it was probably serious. My fight or flight kicked in. You might laugh at me, but when I work I keep a knife next to me. Ran upstairs with the knife and looked around for any suspicious noises. The banging had stopped, and I didn't know where it had come from. I knew what section of the house that I heard it from, but there didn't seem to be anything out of place. I stood there for a few moments and then I heard it again. It happened right on the other side of my door. Immediately braced myself for there to be some kind of animal or something trying to get in. I didn't really know what to expect. I opened my door to see that the screen door had not been properly closed. My girlfriend didn't close it all the way when she left for work that morning. It was also pretty windy that day, so it was just going back and forth, causing a banging noise when the wind got bad. This was kind of a breaking point for me. I didn't want to live my life in constant paranoia and fear of some kind of attack coming to my home. We live in a safe area. There's never been a serious threat, and I have run around my house with a knife way too many times now. I honestly felt kind of stupid, so I made a decision. I was no longer going to assume that someone was breaking in if and when I heard a sound. I put the knife in my dresser in my bedroom and decided that I was going to just be in to work while I was working. Except for my documentary, of course. So there I was the next week. It happened on a Wednesday. I was sitting in my office doing exactly what I had set out to do. I was working, ignoring the noises, and listening to a documentary. I remembered the exact part of the documentary I was on when I heard it. The sound was the loudest sound I had heard in the house up to that point. At first, I reassured myself that it was nothing and that I need to fight against this paranoia. The sound continued, and I couldn't take my mind off of it. After about 5 minutes of listening to what sounded like rummaging and walking, I went upstairs to check. Bear in mind, I didn't have any weapon on me, and I was expecting some kind of reasonable explanation. When I got to my kitchen, I saw that the front door was wide open. The cabinets were all open, and there was a strange man rummaging through my stuff. Didn't notice until after the fact, but he had been eating something. I remember screaming at him. I don't remember what I said, but it was something to the effect of, "What are you doing in my house?" obviously. Then he just ran off. Didn't say a single word. He took a loaf of bread with him, but I don't think he took anything else other than what I had eaten before I came upstairs. I reasoned with myself that he must have been some sort of homeless man or something. I don't know why else he would steal a loaf of bread from a very ordinary-looking house. This was the worst thing that could have happened. On some instinctual level, it had proved all of my worst fears right. There was some kind of danger in my house. And of course, it was the one time when I didn't have my knife on me. I lucked out that he didn't try to hurt me or anything, but it's still horrifying to see nonetheless. Just work at a local coffee shop now. It's honestly my only way to stay sane. A few years ago, I got my tonsils out, and I should mention that I am well into my 30s. Thought it would be a fairly simple recovery, given that every time I've heard about someone getting their tonsils out, that someone was a child. Blending what I learned from television, my friends, and the internet, it seemed like it would be a breeze. I'd just live on ice cream and mashed potatoes, watch lots of Netflix, and sleep. Spoiler alert, it was not a breeze. I found myself in the emergency room at 3 in the morning, 7 days after my surgery, with blood in my throat and the worst pain I could ever even imagine. It was a really bad night, made just a little bit worse with the fact that I was alone. I was being really tough about it though. And after I'd been triaged and admitted to a room, I tried to make myself comfortable and turn on the TV. The room was fairly large for an ER room. I searched through the channels and found something I wanted to watch, and decided to text my boss to let him know I probably wouldn't be in the next day. I dug for my phone in my purse, found it, and when I looked up, I realized that there was a man in my room. I knew immediately that this man was not in his right mind. He was youngish, wearing a dirty t-shirt and khaki shorts, and stared at me unblinking. "Hi, can I help you?" asked. The man continued staring at me and said nothing. "I don't think you're supposed to be in here," I said, trying to be polite. He said nothing but began advancing toward my bed slowly. My heart was racing, and I was thinking, leave it to me to be taken out in an emergency room of all places. I don't remember what I said next, only it was some sort of panicked version of, "You're not supposed to be in here. Please leave." But he kept lumbering forward, advancing ever more so. He was steps away from my bed when 3 cops rushed into the room. The 3 of them put their hands in front of them defensively, but used very polite and soothing tones. They said things like, "Hey, wrong room, buddy. Let's go this way." But they never touched him. Somehow they were able to coax him out the door and down the hall, closing the door behind them. It was surreal. I almost could have thought I imagined the whole thing, except a few minutes later, the doctor came in to see me and immediately addressed it and apologized for my surprise visitor. "Yeah, we got an off-his-med situation," he said, as though that explained everything. Being in a hospital is truly where we are most vulnerable, and I hadn't until then realized how completely mashed together and exposed we can be. Nothing dangerous happened, but it totally could have gone downhill in those few minutes we were alone together. So a few days ago, around 9 p.m., I was on the way to my aunt's house, which takes about an hour. As we were on the way there, nothing creepy happened until we came along to her driveway. The driveway is a very long gravel way. It has a few holes here and there and is shaded with trees all along it. We slowly drove down, and I was staring out the window to see a man standing behind a tree. I thought it was my cousin because he seemed to do that a lot. After entering the house, I asked my aunt where my cousin was, and she said that he was out of town with his mom. It made my heart drop to my stomach. Few hours go by, and it was 11 p.m. We said our goodnights and left. We get in the car and we start to leave. As we got to the end of the way, I noticed the man again in the same place. As we got onto the main road, he disappeared into thin air. I was a little weirded out and decided to call my aunt, and she said that she would let her dogs out to scare whoever it was off, but they never barked. She told me that she would keep the door open throughout the night and let the dogs have full access of the entire yard just to be on the safe side. We drove for about 15 minutes. When we stopped at a stoplight, I was surveying the outside and saw a man in an empty parking lot only lit by a street light, just standing there with his head completely laying on his shoulder again. My heart dropped into my stomach. We drove off, and after me scanning out the window for a while, I saw the same man again in another parking lot standing the same way. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me this whole time because I don't get much sleep due to my paranoia, but I was wide awake. We got back to the town that I live in, and we stopped to get gas. My mom goes into the gas station to pay and to get some snacks, and I was playing with my phone when I get the sudden urge to look up. When I did, I saw the man about 100 feet away from the car, standing behind a large bush, slowly walking towards me, just walking into the bush. Then my mom swings the door open looking at her phone, so my attention shot to her. When I looked back to where the man was standing, he was gone. We left and I didn't see anything, which gave me relief until we got to my house. We got out of the car and started to head in. I then realized I left my phone in the car. I rushed back to get it, but as I go to open the door, I saw the man at the end of my driveway. My eyes got wide and I got very scared. Keep in mind, I'm only 5'4", 135 pounds, and this man looks to be about 7 feet tall. I was frozen until he started to walk ever so slowly. Quickly got my phone, and as soon as I shut the car door and looked back at him, he stood completely still. As soon as I took a step back, he started a full-on sprint my direction. My adrenaline kicked in and I booked it into the house. Slammed the front door, and my mom looked at me very concerned. I told her about it, then looked out the window to show her, but once again he was gone. I had not seen this man for a while, although I have weird taps on my window every night at 1 and right on the dot.